Sometimes the fantasy playoffs start out with a bang, and sometimes they start out with a whimper.
A very sad and pained whimper.
Let's whine together, shall we?
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to football, guys.
Football. I'm living in a fantasy. Football. Got everybody mad at me. Football. Cause every game I had to win. Football. I gotta be a champion. Football. I'm living in a fantasy.
It's time to get it on. Fantasy playoffs are here, and you've got to win or you go home. Week 15 preview part 1 on the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom. Chargers and Raiders, and Chargers with Easton Stick. Chargers perhaps with Joshua Palmer, and Easton Stick actually looked better, dare I say, than Herbert against the Broncos. Now that's coming in cold, no film, all these sorts of things. Easton Stick isn't a slappy, but he's one of those backups that might surprise Bloom. And of course, you love Keenan Allen. We know there's a split in the backfield now. Three ways. We were expecting Joshua Kelly, and last week they're like, here's Isaiah Spiller and Austin Eckler, who did look better. Of course, it's the Broncos' weak run defense, but the Chargers side is interesting. You thought you could count on something. Maybe there's still parts you can count on, Bloom.
Yeah, we're waiting to see what happens here. Keenan Allen's banged up, and again, the injury calculus changes late in the season. Austin Eckler playing for his next contract. Sure interested to see where he's going to end up. Probably in your lineup. At least he looked better and scored last week. Is Joshua Palmer back? If not, maybe is Quentin Johnston an interesting what the heck flex, getting that deep ball from Easton Stick. Also, again, Keenan Allen figuring in here, maybe even Gerald Everett. But also this Vegas defense has been underrated all year, and it was good enough to get Joshua Dobbs benched last week. So what do we have in this game, Cease? Hopefully not a lot of players in your fantasy playoffs lineup, and a chance to evaluate Easton Stick after what Jake Browning did. We'll talk about him. You know, we don't want to close the door, say the book has been written on these guys. Easton Stick has a chance to make some money like Tommy DeVito and his agent are. Am I right? Hey, and I'm a quarter Italian. I can say that. I'm a quarter Italian.
I think we could say it anyway. Listen, Aiden O'Connell, we've been watching Bloom.
Yeah.
And it's not good. I like the kid. I liked him coming out, mid-round prospect, sleeper, upside, whatever. Like, yeah, we've seen plenty. So I'm just like, is Jimmy Garoppolo going to play like at the end of the year, a game against the Broncos? It is a Broncos show, but this game Thursday night and no Josh Jacobs, like, oh my God, things are pretty thin there with Vegas.
Yeah, evaluation of Zamir White. That pick hasn't worked out as they hope. Jacobs, it's a quad injury, not a knee injury. We'll see. I don't think we're going to see him on short rest. Watch Michael Mayer, a second-round pick this year. Evaluate him. Evaluate Aiden O'Connell, who's probably good enough to be a bridge quarterback, but maybe not the answer. But still, you get that on the third day of the draft. You did well. Devontae Adams probably in your lineup. Jacoby Myers probably in your lineup. In PPR leagues where you start 3 wide receivers and a flex, you're not necessarily excited to play these guys. You're not excited to watch this game. Maybe you're excited for some Saturday football.
Yeah, maybe 3 games on Saturday. We will get to it. But first, Killa brought up the name of all names, Bloom. That's right. The beautiful and wonderful Marcy Rossman. I was, I think, messaging Marcy the other day. So still in contact, still friends with her. But yes, the Marcy Rossman rule, which you and I have had great debate about over the years, it's basically start your studs, dance with who brung you. During the fantasy playoffs, I retell the story every time, Bloom. Should have danced with Marcy. And when I took her to homecoming, and she wasn't from Grover, she was from Eaton, Colorado. Shout out Austin Eckler. There's your, fantasy connection. Anyway, and went to egg the principal's house and drink beer when I was 15. That says a lot about me. Doesn't say a lot good about me, Bloom. Anyway, came back. Marcy was, very upset. We broke up, and I've always thought, man, I should have danced.
Everything happens for a reason, though, Cease. If we're going to take this story, Cease, if we're going to really take this story in full context, everything in your life had to happen exactly the way it happened for you to have your 3 beautiful children and beautiful wife and the wonderful life you have. So I don't know if the Marcy Rossman rule stands for that. Maybe it just stands for, go with your gut and it'll eventually lead you to where you're supposed to be.
Well, here's the thing. Everything happens for a reason and you're the reason. I don't
right.
want to
I
get
like that.
too crunchy on everybody, but yeah, that's the way it goes. So Marcy Rossman rules basically start your studs. Bloom, but let's have a conversation about this for Fantasy Laughs. Your studs may not be your studs anymore. Your studs,
sure.
it's the guarantee on the box for Tommy Boy. It makes you feel good at night, but like your studs may not be your studs anymore. So start your studs, but make sure they're still studly, I guess.
Yeah, I think that Dance with Who Brung You represents who are if you're in the playoffs, who are the players that are the reason you're in the playoffs? Okay, that's the Who Brung You. So as Diego, our man, always happy to see him, and so many other wonderful people in the chat room this morning. Did Austin Eckler bring you? I don't know. And then, like you said, Cecil, you're looking at the last 3 or 4 weeks. Another spin I would put on this, again, I will always refer back to standardized tests. It's too bad I can't just have a job doing standardized tests. That was something that came naturally. But when you look over the multiple choices in the standardized tests, usually the first pass through, one of them will have a little glimmer, a little string. Yeah, that's probably the one. And then we would use our intellect to undermine our certainty. Say, well, is there any reason that it could be this answer or this answer? And especially for the ones where it's like 1 and 2, 1, 2 and 3, 1 and 4, none of the above. Trust that first instinct. But to unpack that, if you are going to think long and maybe think wrong, ask yourself, are you starting this player because of things within the sphere of the player's control? In other words, because they're a badass, sorry, Joe. Or are you starting this player because of matchup? Are you starting this player because you're just, you think maybe something's going to happen? The last thing I'll say here is most of the worst fantasy football calls I've made on a weekly basis, on a start-sit basis, is when I bet on a trend to reverse. So the momentum we have coming into week 15 is probably the momentum we're going to have going out of week 15.
That is correct. Saturday games, you got 3 of them, Minnesota and Cincinnati. One with a backup that's pretty good, one with a backup that, well, I don't know. What are we going to get from Nick Mullins? So fantasy playoffs, the wicked mistress that is fantasy football. There's some changes this week, Bloom. We talked about Easton Stick being in. Now we got to talk about Minnesota and their changes. And what the hell's that mean for anybody this week?
Yeah, this team has an inside track to the playoffs. Playoff implications abound on Saturday. Wow. Nick Mullins, 2 quarterback superflex leagues. You're looking at him when he was playing in a Kyle Shanahan highly structured offense. He was pretty good for a little while. Good yards per attempt, or really a Kyle Shanahan stat. Kevin O'Connell's offense also pretty structured. And wow, when you have Justin Jefferson, who should play in this game, TJ Hawkinson, you can count on him. Jordan Addison, maybe not counting on him for fantasy, adds value to Nick Mullins, right? So a running game that may feature Ty Chandler, a what the heck flex. I don't think we're going to see Madison. Yeah, although the Cincinnati pass defense is rallying a little bit. Minnesota right now has an inside track to the playoffs. When we get to Detroit, we can talk about there's a scenario where Minnesota wins the division and hosts a playoff game and loses Daniel Jones. Well, maybe to somebody else. Maybe, but they have to win this game first.
Yeah, they got to win this game, and they got to win it against Jake Browning, who's getting it done at the highest level. Maybe not the highest level, but still, you're excited about what the young quarterback has shown. Just on our newswire this morning, Bloom. I haven't yet commented on it because I just woke up. Jake Browning, incredibly precise, has thrown a catchable pass on 96.9% of his 102 pass attempts this season, according to Sports Info Solutions. Yeah, I don't need the data. I just watched the film. The film shows very well-placed passes and more life, more Chase Brown, but also Joe Mixon ain't going anywhere. So the Bengals at home can say, oh, yeah, I see your backup quarterback, and we'll just beat you.
Yeah, I think Jake Browning is a really good player to talk about Dance with you brung you, the Marcy Rossman rule, because he didn't quite bring us. And he's had 2 for fantasy C's. He's been performing at the highest level. Okay. He's been doing it for fantasy. Now, where this would really get interesting and tricky, and I'm not saying this is where I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth and say, I don't even know if Tua Tagovailoa brought people, but if someone said, I'm going to start Jake Browning over Tua, Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, Jake Browning over Patrick Mahomes maybe is going a little too far. Jake Browning over CJ Stroud, I mean, probably, assuming Nico Collins isn't going to play. So, where I think you're getting a little too cute. Jake Browning over Kyler Murray against San Fran. Yeah. So, but again, Kyler Murray didn't bring you. Okay. Trevor Lawrence might be a slightly better example, but Trevor Lawrence has been up and down this year. So there's reasons that we're considering starting Jake Browning. I did a little quick deep dive. I know, should we have seen Jake Browning coming, Cease? Should we seen him coming? 91 touchdowns in his senior year in high school. He set all kinds of California records. He set the national record for passing touchdowns in high school. Mm-hmm. Started as a true freshman. Sees how many quarterbacks start as a true freshman in big time Power 5 programs?
Not many.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Started as a true freshman. He finished 6th in the Heisman voting as a sophomore. Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells would have loved him. 54 college starts.
Of course.
Got his team into a Rose Bowl, got his team into the college football playoff, finished as Washington's all-time leading passer, and then barely got a sniff. Minnesota actually was the team that signed him originally. Barely got a sniff, and this also could be something for, give a quarterback years in the incubator to learn, to watch, and maybe if they don't really get significant action until they're mentally truly ready, this is what we get. What are we going to get otherwise from this offense? Is Jamar Chase going to play? If he is on the field, don't overthink that one. He's in your lineup, even if he does the same thing he does last week. I call it the what can you live with rule. I can live with losing because I played Jamar Chase. I cannot live with losing because I didn't play him. Speaking of Chase Brown, what the heck flex? Getting headlines. And, of course, Joe Mixon's in. If Jamar Chase is out, don't think he will be, then maybe you're looking at T. Higgins here playing for a contract, looking pretty good out there. And you got to like Cincinnati 3 weeks ago, Cease, playing for a higher draft pick. Evaluate your young players. Now, playoffs. Yeah, let's see Jake Browning in the playoffs. The team is calling for the Cincinnati crowd to get out there, be loud, make this an exciting atmosphere, and let's keep this rolling.
Let's keep this thing rolling, and Saturday games continue with Pittsburgh and Indianapolis. Just make it stop, Bloom.
Yeah.
Make it stop. We have to talk about the Steelers this time. Please make it stop.
Yeah, this is like a pre-playoff game. Chances are the team that wins this playoff game has an inside track to a playoff spot, or at the very least advances to continue to be in the playoff picture. The loser probably fading. Are we really calling for Mason Rudolph, Cease? Have it really come to this? Does it really come to this? We, the Pittsburgh Steelers fan base, are saying, please play Mason Rudolph. Remember when we were calling for Duck Hodges? That one didn't go well. That didn't go well.
Right.
Again, everybody's a what the heck flex here. Maybe Jalen Warren's more than that if Najee Harris doesn't play. The knee issue, missing practice, but he did play, I think, without practicing on Thursday. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, again, what the heck flexes? And wow, where are you if you're George Pickens and Antonio Brown is giving you advice publicly on how to get favor with the coach and quarterback to get more? Antonio Brown is saying, hey, man, let me give you some advice on how to get along better with your teammates and get more targets. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, that's the Steelers. Antonio Brown give you advice on how to pay your chef. Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. I made sure you weren't drinking when I said that, Bloom. But it wasn't funny, so you didn't laugh.
Well, it's funny, but I mean, the Antonio Brown thing is still kind of sad.
It goes back to the Vontaze Burfict thing. I was talking with some Steelers people
CTE,
a few weeks ago. Yeah, and I was like, is that really the play? Because they were in the building when Antonio was there. I was like, was that really the moment? And they're like, no, there was stuff before that. But yeah, the Antonio Brown thing actually is kind of sad.
It's very sad.
Yeah. Indianapolis side.
Sad.
Sorry, Joe. Some of these transitions are a little bit interesting, but yeah. Colts side. Hey, fantasy football and Colts going to the playoffs.
Yeah. Speaking of concussions, is TJ Watt going to play? It looks like it. Should he play? I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't think we're going to see Jonathan Taylor this week. Maybe next week. Zach Moss, though, he's not bringing you anywhere except out of the playoffs. Watch him have a huge game against the Steelers, but you're probably breaking ties against him because he hasn't done anything since Jonathan Taylor went down. Michael Pittman, you can count on him. Maybe Gardner Minshew, 2 quarterback super flex. Hey, Bailey Zappi looked good for a half. So Josh Downs, you can see him getting behind the Steelers defense once, right? Alec Pierce, you can see him getting behind. I mean, this was a defense that let Bailey Zappi throw 3 touchdown passes. So we'll see.
We shall see. It is a Broncos show and Saturday night. Oh boy. Saturday night. How to ruin your Saturday night? Well, lose to the Lions, I suppose. Broncos versus Lions, hottest team in the league. True contenders, unless you're Baltimore or the Cowboys or the Eagles, because I love Howie Roseman. But let's talk about the Broncos and how they're covering up for Russell Wilson. Why I think Brandon Johnson should be in as a crazy what-the-heck flex.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who could have seen that coming? I'll be out at practice later today. This is Wednesday morning if you're listening to the audio version. So take that for what it is. It's about running the ball and playing great defense and limiting Russell Wilson and then having him throw up prayers to Cortland Sutton. Sounds about right. But against the Lions, Bloom, they might have to do a little more.
Yeah, they might. And I think that's the question here, right? We'll skip ahead to the Lions side real quickly. We're going to have indoor Jared Goff. And yes, this Broncos defense has been feisty. I think McMillan is like their spirit animal, the gremlin. A feisty defense. But is feisty good enough against Ben Johnson's offense indoors? So maybe it's a Russell Wilson game, or at least Russell Wilson will have a chance to make it a Russell Wilson game. And for fantasy, you care about that because he's adding as a runner. It's probably not a Javonte Williams game. Those are only the games that they can control. Cortland Sutton, stop betting against him scoring touchdowns. He's going to find a way to, if he found a way to catch that ball last week, he's going to find a way to score a touchdown in this game. It is the Detroit defense. And maybe a Jerry Jeudy game. I know you said Brandon Johnson. I mean, if there's a game where Russell Wilson has to throw the ball 40 times, maybe a Jerry Jeudy game. I don't know. I do know that Detroit needs to win this one to keep their fans from saying not again. I thought we were past this being the Lions' identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Against that feisty Broncos defense, you could just run the ball. So many teams don't do that. So it's Ben Johnson versus Vance Joseph, 2 future head coaches. Ben Johnson for sure next year. Vance Joseph maybe next year. But Bloom, I'm telling you, the key is just run.
Right.
Just run. If they did that, they would win. But how tempting will they be? And listen, Laporta is always dangerous. The Sun God's always dangerous. The Broncos defense, the secondary's got some strength, but they have some weakness. They have some feistiness. Like, for me, the key is if they just keep it out of Goff's hands, keep it on the ground.
Sure.
I don't know if they'll do that.
You're right, Cecil. This is a really good personality test for Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson. Mm-hmm. Because on one hand, everything has gone well with this offense. You have all these weapons assembled, including Jameson Williams now, and you can put on an air show and you can really make defenses look silly against some of these plays. On the other hand, you have the backfield duo. They looked good. It was the one good thing about the offense last week. And like you said, Cecil, is this a game where Gibbs and Montgomery should combine for 40 touches? Certainly that should inform you if you're trying to talk yourself into putting either one of these guys on the bench. And you're not going to put Laporta on the bench. You're not going to put Amon-Ra, St. Brown on the bench. But the important thing here is this. And by the time this game happens, Detroit will know what happened with Minnesota. But if Minnesota wins and goes to 8-6, Detroit loses this game and goes to 9-5. Guess what? Detroit plays Minnesota twice in the last 3 weeks of the season.
Ooh.
So you don't want to all of a sudden look at, wait a second, we had this division locked up and now we don't. You want to win this game. And see, this is how to make your key not work anymore, is telling people how to beat the team you cover.
It's fine. They'll be all right. I think they know. I think everybody knows. That's for sure. How about this, man? Super fantastic situation that we've got for you at Football Guys. Want to support the show? Of course, check out footballguys.com. But get this, giving back to St. Jude. It's our program right now for the week of December 11th through December 15th. In this holiday season, we're giving 20% of every new premium subscription sold for the week of December 11th to December 15th to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital is finding cures and saving children, and we are giving back. So 20% of every new premium subscription sold We've got a lot of people that watch this show. We've got a lot of people that, maybe check out footballguys.com. What better time and what better cause than to help out now with 20% of every new premium subscription sold for the week, going to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. Bloom, fantastic. And well, I love it, man. I love that we're doing that this year.
Yeah, and if you're in a dynasty league and you don't subscribe to Football Guys, this is a really good time. Why would I get a fantasy football subscription in December? We can help you win in the playoffs, but we're going to have a rookie draft guide. We're going to have all kinds of dynasty content. And in case you weren't aware, we used to have the paywall down during the off season, but now it's up all off season. So for all that good dynasty goodness, all the coverage of free agency, all the coverage of coaching changes, all the coverage of everything that plants the seeds that we harvest or we go hungry because we didn't plant good seeds in the fantasy football season. Yeah, that's how you're going to eat.
Yeah. Chicago and Cleveland were at Sunday's games, and the Chicago Bears backfield is one you cannot trust, Bloom. It's week 1 of the fantasy postseason. I know we talked about Deontay Foreman in the waiver wire show, but I still don't trust it. Like, there's our public enemy, can't trust it. Like, oh yeah, that's the Bears backfield. And oh yeah, Justin Fields still going to get his. And oh yeah, DJ Moore might even get a rushing touchdown, the first of his career last week.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Bears as they travel to face, hey, God bless America, tough Browns defense.
Yeah, and the Bears are in about as good a spot as you can be for a team that you feel pretty certain is not going to make the playoffs. It is going to be Justin Fields in the future. I don't think they're going to take a quarterback at number 1. And the beautiful thing is then they can trade down out of number 1, get all kinds of pieces, maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. There's not a lot here fantasy intrigue-wise. DJ Moore, yeah, he did end up being an elite fantasy wide receiver with Justin Fields. Cole Kmet, he ended up being an every week starter with Justin Fields. Dante Foreman, I'll say this, he's the lead back, and we did see Dante Foreman have a 3-touchdown game with Tyson Bagent earlier this year. So he's a what the heck flex. And they get to play spoiler because this is a Cleveland team that is, if Joe Flacco can lead this team to the playoffs, wow, that's going to be one of the true most unthinkable stories to watch play out in an NFL season.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe Flacco. Okay, Joe Flacco. Well, hey, Bloom, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Just out of pure curiosity of like, the hell are we going to see? Is it disaster? Well, it's the Bears defense, but we know they're getting after the quarterback better. So that quarterback's pretty stable.
Yeah.
Pretty stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Been there, done that. By the way, Cecil, I was thinking because of Joe Flacco, what veteran quarterback is out there that could save a team season at this point?
Matt Ryan?
Well, Matt Ryan's on TV. The other quarterback, of course, Nick Foles, right? But he's actually fully retired. He's a pickleball champion now. Nick Foles. So pick him up on your fantasy pickleball team. Pick up Joe Flacco on your fantasy team, maybe 2 quarterback super flex. You definitely are putting Amari Cooper and David Njoku in as that downfield passing has been revived, and Jerome Ford. Joe Flacco, you know what veterans know how to do? Check down to the running back. They know how to find the running back. And Jerome Ford has had a really nice season after Nick Chubb went down. Chicago defense has been better lately, but against Jared Goff and Joshua Dobbs. So, I don't know. Are we really talking up Joe Flacco that much? Maybe. We'll see. This is a chance for him to continue to write another chapter, a fun chapter in a career. Maybe it's time for us to stop thinking of him as he got the worst quarterback contract. He's not elite and all that stuff. He's not a Hall of Famer, but he's a very memorable quarterback. And dare I say, there's only been one Joe Flacco, and there will only be one Joe Flacco when it's all said and done.
And the only athlete with a better unibrow is Anthony Davis.
Yeah. So, oh, yeah.
It's
more durable than Davis, though.
Very, very true. Even I know that, Bloom.
Yeah.
Look at us talking basketball. Look at us talking Tampa Bay and the Green Bay Packers. This is another one of those, like, and it's on the Green Bay side, Bloom. I'm just like, what are we going to get? What are you doing? I know on the Tampa Bay side what we're going to get, right? And, of course, Rachaad White. Is he finally in our good graces? I mean, just basically by force of, like, he's just getting the ball all the time, everybody. He's their best option. So there we go. And I love Mike Evans. So
Yeah.
let's talk about Buccaneers against the Packers. And again, a confusing NFLweather.com. What's the weather like in Green Bay? Like,
right.
Okay. And then how do the Packers respond? Anyway, Buccaneers side first.
Yeah, there could be some weather games in those northern latitudes. I want to say again, the Bay of Pigs. And I know Chris Berman turned into a parody of Chris Berman at some point, but for those of us kids about our age, he was the first sportscaster that really made it fun. Him and John Madden, like fun, Dick Vitale, but the way that Chris Berman, NFL Countdown, and I can't remember what they called the show.
Prime time.
Chris Berman and that show, that was must-see TV.
And Tommy Jackson, man, my second favorite player of all time, Tommy Jackson.
Yeah, the Bay of Pigs. Well, not a Bay of Pigs here, actually, as two teams with playoff hopes. Again, that applies to a lot of games this week. First place, Baker Mayfield. Truly Baker, the baby maker. Finally, Rachaad White entrenched in our lineups, entrenched in this backfield. He has arrived. Mike Evans not facing A.J. Terrell this week. A big bounce-back game coming for him. K-Don's got a little momentum if you need a desperation tight end. But yeah, Tampa, you control your own destiny. And if you would have said at the beginning of the season, in week 15, Tampa would be in first place and controlling their destiny for the playoffs, you'd say, geez, the NFC South is bad. But you'd say, good on you, Baker.
Good on you. Green Bay Packers side, I guess we're always watching the injury status of everyone.
Everyone, yeah.
I was going through the list of names. I was like, I could name them all off.
Yeah.
I'll be writing about them for our Football Guys newsletter. But then I was like, oh, it's pretty much everyone except Jordan Love, I guess. Knock on wood.
Right. They had this playoff push, this surprise playoff push. Love stumbled a little bit, but missing some key players. Dontavian Wicks is a little banged up. Is Christian Watson going to play? So, that could get Romeo Doubs into your lineup. Jaden Reed's in your lineup. I mean, he continues to produce as a runner. He got all those short targets. That helps you out in PPR leagues. And Tampa with their pass rush. Tampa is a team you can pass against. I'm not going to put Jordan Love in. He doesn't have momentum, so I'm not going to put him in. It's not like Jake Browning where you're thinking, well, there's momentum here. And maybe there's not for your other option. There's not really momentum here. It wouldn't be shocking to see him have a good game because, well, Desmond Ridder just had a really good game against this Tampa defense. And let's mention Tucker Kraft. You need a desperation tight end. Tucker Kraft has made 2 big boy plays as a rookie now in very limited time. And Luke Musgrave looks like a player too. And isn't it funny, Cease? Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, all these guys, what do they all have in common? They're all blossoming after Aaron Rodgers is gone. Finally, they're getting weapons. Finally, there's young players on offense that can do things for this team. But Tucker Kraft, get to know that name, even though he was a small school player. Compare him to Dallas Goedert. They both San Diego SD, South Dakota State. And this is going to be fun. They're going to be able to roll out 2 wide sets. They're going to be able to roll out varied sets. It's Jordan Love unlocking it. And for now, Jordan Love winning this game so this team can stay in the playoff hunt.
This one is incredible because it's Houston and Tennessee.
Yeah.
And it's incredible because CJ Stroud is incredible, but Will Levis. Okay, we're going to get to the Tennessee side in a little bit, but I mean, you just go back and watch that Miami game. And Miami, Mike McDaniel, I love you. And I've known Mike since he was a teenager, and I want to see the Dolphins have great success. But man alive, Tennessee gave you some humble pie because what was it, 27-13? Like 3 minutes left. Will Levis leads them back. Houston. Now, Houston, we have a problem. Like, Houston's not there yet, but with that quarterback Bloom, they can get there. And they can get there faster than you think. Postseason coming up. Houston's got to start winning. Tennessee's fighting. This one is monumental. Let's talk about the Texans side first.
Yeah, this is fun. Is Stroud going to play, leaves the game in concussion protocol? And when did this shift happen this year? We used to be able to say, Cease, this player suffered concussion. Now we just hear he's in concussion protocol. Euphemisms? Because there have been some players in concussion protocol that did not technically have a concussion. Anyway,
we remember the Derrick Henry thing on the flip side where it was like, it's not a concussion. But concussion protocol, they want to take a look. And so, okay.
So we'll see if he's going to play. And if he's going to play, then you're more interested in Noah Brown. In deep leagues, we're evaluating John Mechie. I don't think we're going to see Nico Collins. So John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, and Devin Singletary. They went back to him. He looked good. Maybe even if Davis Mills is the starter. But yeah, the playoff berth potentially slipping away. Tennessee leaning in to the spoiler role. And it might have happened after all the East Coast dads were asleep or whatever. But Tennessee, Mike Vrabel, this team sees, no matter what we think of them on a baseline, when we look at their talent, when we look at their flaws, this team always finds a way to do a few memorable things, to play over their heads. And boy, what we saw in the last few minutes, because it was all self-inflicted. It was all self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah.
And Will Levis said, not tonight. Tonight's going to be our story, my story.
Right. And you mentioned momentum. You've mentioned momentum a couple of times in this show. Yeah, momentum at home and momentum with a young quarterback. I brought up Aiden O'Connell earlier. Where's our pot stoner degenerate Jason, the Raiders fan up in Greeley? Like, sorry, it's not there with O'Connell. With Levis, we're getting flashes that it could be. So give me more. Give me more Will Levis. Yes, and set this up for the more than just Derrick Henry weapons, more than just Derrick and Nuke, right?
Right.
I want to see some of the other weapons thrive as well. This game against Houston, you can attack the secondary. Kind of attack mode will Levis and company be in?
Yeah, and attack mode, I think, is the key here. This is the kind of game, because we heard about a month and a half ago, Will Levis is the quarterback of the future, and we run down the quarterbacks in the AFC South. Wow, AFC South has young quarterbacks on the rise. But that game Monday night is the kind of game that galvanizes a locker room, right? It's the kind of game that makes him the leader, the actual entrusted leader of that team. It was potentially a changing moment, a franchise changing moment for them. And I want to put a punctuation mark on this, Cease. Cameron Wolfe, great NFL writer.
One of my dear friends used to cover the Broncos.
Great guy. He put out there 0.4%. After the second touchdown, after the second fumble and touchdown, the Titans had a 0.4% chance of winning. Only one game since they started keeping track of this 2016 was lower. And I didn't remember it. So I'll give you a quick pause. Anything jump to mind, Cease?
No.
It involves Joe Flacco. It was the Jets-Browns game.
Okay.
Remember the Jets-Browns game when Nick Chubb scored instead of just going down and the game would have been over, right? And then Cade York missed the extra point. It was 30-17 with about a minute and a half left. Then Corey Davis, remember him, caught a 66-yard touchdown. Then they recovered the onside kick. And then Joe Flacco said when the play call came in, he smiled to himself because he knew it was going to work. And they won, and they did get the extra point, and they won 31-30. So maybe that's why Joe Flacco is doing all this, is to make up to Browns fans that loss, previously the most unlikely loss at 0.3%. Anyway, down memory lane, let's come back to the present here. Derrick Henry's in our lineup. Tyjae Spears may be in our lineup. You saw him play a big role, a deep catch and 3 catches on one of those drives to make that amazing comeback. Nuke Hopkins, yeah, he's in your lineup after what he did against Miami's corners. It's Houston. This is the Houston defense that just allowed Zach Wilson to find himself, right? That was the backdrop. So Will Levis already found himself. Maybe he'll find Chiggy Okonkwo, one of your favorite guys. He's in this one. He's coming on. Tennessee's coming on. And yeah, momentum. They're creating momentum, not necessarily for this season, but for the long haul.
Yeah, keep that momentum going. And then Jets Miami. I'm confused, Bloom.
Yeah.
I'm confused and confounded. You talked about Tua a little bit earlier. It's like, okay, and we'll get to the Dolphins eventually. We got to talk about the Jets. I'm confounded by the Jets. Like, are they going to put up a fight? Like, offensively? Mm-hmm. Is Tyreek going to play on the Dolphins side? So does that open the window of opportunity for the Jets to get a divisional win like this one? Another one. What a Biggie say. And another one. Like, yeah, and we got another one that's pretty good. Better than I thought it would be. Looking at the Jets just 2 weeks ago.
Right. And isn't it fun to play spoiler against a team in the division? That's the thing. And Robert Saleh and this team, they crave it. They're a moody team. They're a very moody team, and their mood right now is probably looking for a good fight and winning that fight. And the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel, I love Mike McDaniel, right? But does Mike McDaniel have in him the fire to get his team over what happened to them on Monday night? It's a lot of good questions here. Zach Wilson, a sleeper this week. Yeah, sleeper. Do you see what Will Levis did? Do you see the talent? Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall back in your lineup. Maybe even Tyler Conklin, Jeremy Ruckert not in your lineup, but now they can go to 2 tight end attack. They're not really establishing the run, but they can pass out of a 2 tight end attack. And Miami is a team right now licking their wounds. And I'll set it up like this, Cease. This game is massively important for Miami because the next 3 games are Dallas, Baltimore, and Buffalo. And then you're looking at 9-8. Now, 9-8 probably makes the playoffs in the AFC. You know, that's how the AFC is this year. Maybe not, though. And you know who's looking at that and licking their chops? That Week 18 opponent, Buffalo, who's got a happy story unfolding right now. Miami, Tua, Mike McDaniel, this franchise. Remember, this team, I think, lost 5 straight going into the playoffs a few years back. So they've got to change the story here. And the Jets are a tough team to change the story against, even though a few weeks ago they did just thump them.
Yeah. So can you do what you did again? And how does it look if there's no Tyreek Hill? We saw glimpses during that game against the Titans of what it looks like without Tyreek. It's not good. It's not good. So Wednesday morning, watch the injury report, blah, blah, blah. But like, oh boy, this one could be very interesting.
Very interesting. Even if he plays, is he going to be 100%? He missed about half the game. He did finish the game. He did make some plays. I have a feeling we're going to play him. He has to be in your lineup. Is he going to be as big of an influence on this game as he usually is? That's the bigger question. Raheem Mostert has to be in. Devin Achane, you probably put him in. There was that long ball that just missed him, or he would have had a better fantasy night. But if Tyreek Hill doesn't get into full practice, especially if Tyreek Hill is out, then I would understand maybe breaking a tie against Devin Achane. This could be a low-scoring, ugly offensive game, partially because now this team has lost their 4th starter on the offensive line. Connor Williams, the center, torn ACL. Okay, that's another factor here against a Jets defense that is going to love getting after them. Jalen Waddle's probably in, even if Tyreek's out there again, because you would expect him to be the fresher. And here we are. Sees Jalen Waddle's a healthier Dolphins wide receiver. I really messed up the impact of that. But the impact of this game, this is fun. This is exciting. And even though the Jets have nothing to play for, in a way, emotionally, they have a lot to play for.
Yeah, they got a lot to play for and perhaps play to save their coach's job.
Yeah, and that's a team that would want to save their coach's job.
Oh, God, yes. Whoever gets Robert Saleh, if the Jets move on from him, good for you.
Did I see something about Mike Tomlin getting traded to Washington or something? Someone's putting that out there.
I saw they're already breaking the seal on the Belichick's done after this year in New England.
Yeah,
I can't remember which New England reporter had it. It was a long time
Tom
reporter.
Curran.
Curran.
Stay tuned for part 2. So yeah, maybe, hey, if Bill Bell says, I'm not wishing for, I love Mike Tomlin, but Robert Saleh is out there.
Have you heard all the old Steelers talk? We're going to turn this into a Steelers show. Have you heard the old Steelers talk about how, like, the Steelers way, like, you can't get these guys that put on the black and gold and they think they're just going to win. Like, it's about the work. I think Cam Hayward, there was a video all up in the video. I think Ben Roethlisberger was all up in the video. Like, all these, they took all the Steelers, the real Steelers, and they're like, you got too many frauds out there putting on this jersey thinking you can just win.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's been the part of the Steelers' way, is underachieving and playing down to inferior opponents, going back to the Bill Cowher days. So, in a way, taking teams lightly and losing to inferior teams, that has also been part of the Steelers' way.
Part of our way is sending lots of love to you during these fantasy playoffs. Of course, we've got part 2 for you coming up on Thursday. You want to help the show, support the show, go to footballguys.com. We appreciate you very much for that. Help us grow the YouTube channel. That means like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And we appreciate you very much for that. He's Sigmund Bloom. Follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible, saying thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.